Guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? Right, had a cool question come in today, surprisingly, on the Twitter machine. I work the semi-graveyard shift. Sometimes, a few times a week, I've got to run pharmaceuticals between Oklahoma City and Dallas. And depending on how fast I get my first few deliveries done, I can sometimes arrive at a dock at a hospital or something, and they're not ready to take the shipment yet, and so I've got to wait at the consignee before they can let me in. And it's all temperature sensitive stuff, antibiotics, blah blah blah. And so I usually keep a book on hand, and right now I'm carrying my beater paperback copy of the Silmarillion because I'm reading up on it for a project later this year. And just posted a picture, tweeted something out, said hi to everybody for the morning, and reading some Silmarillion. And one of my followers posted a question. He goes, do you ever find yourself getting attacked by midwits for being a trucker who writes fantasy fiction because that clearly means you don't take either seriously enough? And I read that and I thought, I can't say that I've ever been attacked for that. I've been attacked for plenty of other things, especially by the Red Rising Bernie bros, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole again. But no, I haven't, and in fact, I've had kind of the opposite experience that I've gotten a generally positive response to being a literate trucker. Now, my trucking career and my publishing career have both been pretty strongly intertwined over the last 11 years. But my writing career, such as it is, goes back even farther than that. In fact, it wasn't until, I was probably 8 years old when I first started writing stories in the third grade. I loved reading books so much, and then kind of discovered, thanks to my teacher, it's like, well, if you like to read them, there's really nothing stopping you from writing one too. And I've just been doing it ever since. I did briefly have an agent from 2011 to 2013. And then it wasn't a match. Like, the stuff that I wrote ended up not being a good fit for her to find placement for it. And agents specialize in stuff that way. And it seemed like some of my work did work for her. And then as she read more of my stuff and tried placing it, it wasn't a fit. It happens sometimes. But right around that same time, I got my CDL and started driving long haul, which it's kind of the most basic way to cut your teeth in trucking, but it ended up giving me a lot of time sitting in the cab after hours when I'd run out my clock for the day and done all the miles that I could. I just open up the laptop and start working on something, and I said, you know what, I'm 28 years old and I've been by the numbers chasing this dream for 20 years already. And even got close for a couple of years there with an agent, and stuff going in and out of the submission pile with publishers and stuff. And I'd always been a what's the right word here? A voracious reader, not necessarily a prolific one until 10, 15 years ago. I was pretty much in my genre. It wasn't until later on that I started branching out. But, being a truck driver and listening to so many dang audiobooks gave me the time and the tools to become a better writer. They've come hand in hand. In fact, I know that I wouldn't have read so much if I didn't have so much windshield time or so much alone time to plug in audiobooks, or, when I'm at a customer and, just waiting and on standby and stuff, pulling out a print book and brushing up on some things. Especially now that I'm working so many hours, and when I am home, I'd rather be either playing with my kids or spending time with my wife, or working on something instead of just sitting down and reading. Finding the time to do that is rarer and rarer. But the point is, I get to read up on a lot of subjects and read broadly, and that stuff informs my writing. It informs my conversations that I have with people, and being broadly read is just generally a good thing. As an appendage to what I posted recently, I don't trust people who don't read broadly at this point, just because like the more you read, the more you realize how much you don't know. And that's whether you're reading good fiction or good nonfiction. It broadens your horizons, and it makes you hungry to learn and know more. And that's a hunger that I would hope everybody has. So I do take my craft very seriously. I've managed to publish something every year since 2014. And even had a couple of shorter pieces picked up here and there before that, but I've managed to keep the streak alive after year after year. I do take that craft seriously, and I do constantly want to get better at it. As far as my trucking goes, I took that seriously from the very beginning because I got into it so that I could provide a living for my family, so that my wife wouldn't have to work, so that we wouldn't have to put the kids in daycare or anything. The plan was always, whatever I make, that's what we're going to live off of. And, trucking gave me the quickest and best shot at that. And so I've always taken it seriously. Be careful, get good at it, level up, look for the next best thing. In 11 years, I've only had one accident where, I hit something and the insurance had to get involved and had to fill out a police report. And I remember exactly, where I was, what day it was, and what caused it. Ultimately, what caused it was... I allowed myself to get stressed and hurried, and I didn't check my mirrors before I started moving in a tight parking lot, and by the time I checked my right side, I was already rolling, and I ended up dragging a long trailer alongside a customer's car and tore the bumper off of her Yukon, and boy, I felt like crap. Because it was a customer that I liked. I dropped in there once a week, and she'd say hi, nice old older lady, late 50s. Her name was, I'm not going to dox her, but... She heard the collision, and she comes running out, and she sees it's her truck, and she's screaming, "Oh, are you effing kidding me?" And then she sees it was me. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I was like, "What the hell are you sorry for? Like, I tore the back of your truck off. You're sorry." Jeez. But I had a lot of things going wrong that day. I'd been stuck with this student driver who, 10 days into me training him, he still just wasn't getting it. And, we were behind schedule, which just irks me on a personal level. But like the real icing on the cake was that it was April 27th, which is my sister's birthday. And so, that was just on my mind generally. And then there were all these other force multipliers. And so long story short, that was 8 years into my career. And I finally had a moving accident where I caused a problem. Other than that, I take my craft really seriously, and I want to be safe, I want to be efficient, I want to make the best money that I can. It is important to provide that living for my family, but it's also important to get it done quickly so that I can get home, I can be with them, I can put the kids to sleep, and I can have a few hours to draw or write and then get back at it. Without really meaning to, there are a lot of ways that both of those sides of my career have paralleled Louis L'Amour. Longtime viewers of the channel will know that I'm a huge fan of the great American author. Last of the Breed, my favorite novel of his, and his autobiography, Education of a Wandering Man, is a top 5 all-time book of mine. Literally changed the course of my life reading that. Opened my eyes up to the possibilities of just being a blue-collar guy who reads a ton, works a lot, writes a lot. And the more that I read of his work and of his life, the more that I know I made the right choice going this way with my career. In a supreme twist of irony, I wouldn't have found that book if I wasn't trying to go to college and taking an independent study class. And my English classes were always the ones where I did the best, just because that was something that I was always doing, was writing. Whether I was writing for my website or writing for my novel projects. And the teacher assigned that, and I was like, oh, I know who Louis L'Amour is. He writes all those westerns. He writes those old cowboy books. And then you read about his life, and you're like, holy crap, I could really do this. And ultimately, about 2 years later, that's the book that convinced me to drop out of college. So I got what I needed to out of those few attempts that I made at school. And then I just decided, you know what, I don't need to go tens of thousands of dollars in the hole for a degree that I might not really use. I can just get good at something and keep working in the meantime. Keep doing what I've been doing since I was 8 years old. And, as to whether somebody might want to assess my skills and decide whether I take either of those things seriously, well, it's only my employers who would need to decide how seriously I take my craft as a truck driver. And it's my readers. Nope, here comes the siren, boys. Let me pull over. It's my readers who would ultimately decide whether I'm taking my craft as a writer seriously. And I would like you to assess me then. Booyah, there's the hook. Check the description for the link to my Amazon page and find something and check it out. In fact, I'll plug Rebel Heart, my first published novel. Definitely not the first one that I wrote, but the first one that I published. In 2013, when I was driving for a long-haul carrier, I got stuck on a 3-day layover in Denver because a couple of times a year the DOTs of Canada, America, and Mexico will all team up and do a DOT blitz where they'll just pull over truckers left and right and find anything wrong with their logs or their inspections or whatever, and just go on a super hardcore ticketing run. And so if you're driving a company truck and if there's anything remotely sus about it, as the kids say, you stay at a terminal until either you get it fixed or the DOT blitz passes. And so I was stuck there for a while and said, you know what, I'm going to make what I can of this time. And I ended up outlining the entire Engines of Liberty trilogy, and the outline came together perfectly, and I ended up putting together a 35,000 word first draft in about a month, just off of how well that came together, just writing at night, every night that summer. And hired some editors and stuff, was able to put that all together and get it published the following spring. And that whole trilogy is done now, and currently I am illustrating the first sequel to it. There's going to be a couple of them. It takes place 50 years after the first trilogy, but since I'm working on that fourth book, now is a good time for you guys to check out the original trilogy. Engines of Liberty. The first book is Rebel Heart. If you're going to look through my list of fantasy novels on Amazon, that's the most accessible place to start. I'll close by saying that, maybe I take my writing and my trucking seriously, and I definitely do take my drawing seriously, but I'm further behind the curve on that particular skill set than I am with my writing and my trucking. And nobody made that clearer to me than the two sisters who listened to my old podcast, Kitty and Pearl. That's what, not their actual names, but they wrote in and they were fans of my book podcast, and they decided to check out Engines. And Kitty was the older sister, and she was kind of nice about it, and Pearl was a little bit more blunt. She's like, yeah, the art wasn't very good. I was like, oh, thanks. I knew it wasn't going to be very good. I knew my skills were as good as they could be at the time, and I was going to put in the work to get better, along the way, but I knew that part of that was just going to be, doing the work, doing the practice, and doing the best that I could at the time. And I did. And, I've got 10 years of experience with doing much better illustrations now, and 4 of that in digital. So if I were to do it now, I'd be better at writing it and drawing it, but, hey, that's the whole point. It's like Larry Correia says, writing is one of those careers where you're always judged based on your rookie year, on your debut novel. But it is what it is. I still stand by it. I'm still proud of it. It was the best that I could do at the time, and it's hard to get worse at something you do every day. So here I am. Anyway, thanks for all that. Once again, check the description for relevant links. I appreciate you guys listening to this as I drive home every day. It's nice to converse with you through this medium. I appreciate you guys being subscribers and viewers and all that. Till next time, drive safe, and I will see you out there.